Hi there, listeners. One quick favor, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. It does help others find the podcast. Thanks. Welcome to Not Suitable for Work. I'm your host, Peter C. Diamond. You think your office is nuts? Wait until you hear some of these stories.
The story I tell people as a cautionary tale of what not to do in a pressure-filled situation.
So my boss says, you didn't say anything mean, nothing derisive about anyone, nothing derisive about the company. It was a very positive email, just laced with trucker language, right?
Gotta tell the truth. It can only get worse from here. It always matters to tell the truth. And maybe this is a test.
What about our professional dynamic has given you license to act in this way?
With each podcast, I interview folks who have a humorous work story to share. Along the way, I'll offer advice to help you make sense of your own office nonsense. Don't worry, no careers were harmed in making Not Suitable for Work. Names and places may have been changed to protect the not so innocent. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. My guest is Shawn Farrell, a senior vice president, group creative director at a large advertising agency. Not only is he feeling the heat to deliver on a high visibility client project, he's also very mindful of being the only man working on his team. Even this high level of awareness didn't prevent him from misfiring and finding himself in hot water. His story is one of role reversal, unbounded exuberance, and a bit of gamesmanship.
A few years back, I was working in a team working on beauty products, for Procter & Gamble, a bunch of beauty products. I won't name the brands, but you can imagine what they are. And I was in a team where I want to say I was one man among 15 people. And many of whom, almost predominantly so, were very smart, accomplished, attractive, and blonde. And I'm this tall, sort of vaguely oafish brunette man. And my partner on the account side was all those things I just described. The folks that worked for her were all those things I just described. Everyone on my creative team, purely coincidentally, all incredibly accomplished, incredibly bright, but also attractive and blonde. So it just was one of those every day could be a minefield if I wasn't careful, but also every day could be sheer joy, right? And we found ourselves as a group sort of banded together to try and create creative platforms under which many beauty products could be sold. So in my business, we call that scale marketing. Some people call it a multi-brand commercial innovation. But imagine where you could have, eyeliner, eyelash stuff, skin cream, deodorant, and lipstick all under one umbrella. And so the challenge was to find a thematic that was common enough that all those could fit, that would resonate with women across all the age groups that those products live for. So it was a fairly challenging job, but a job that we did really well, I think, because the talents of these people were bar none. So every year, come around during a certain time period, it is where a lot of marketers do things for breast cancer awareness, whether they're raising money for Susan G. Komen or raising money for some of the other sort of groups that try to help with, early diagnosis or early screening, which was where we were, and or coping and or hospital stays. It's a month of the year that a lot of blue chip marketers work and focus their efforts to support this cause.
So, up until this point, do you have past experiences working on whether it's products geared toward women or this beauty industry? Is that something that you have worked with extensively in the past? Do you have a knowledge of it?
So I had an opportunity given to me by an old boss. And at the time, I didn't know it was an opportunity. I thought he was handing me, something that he wasn't interested in working in, but it turned out to be one of the biggest joys and privileges of my life. I actually, for the agency where I work now, ran the feminine protection creative, which is for 2 brands, for tampon brand and a pad brand, for 6 years.
Okay.
And it was like one of the greatest privileges of my life.
So you had spent time in this
Yes.
in this
And
category
with
this
some of
group,
these same
with some of these same
cast of
people.
characters. Yeah.
So for a self-proclaimed oafish kind of guy, you also kind of embraced, the target audience and the segment, and really
Right. Well, when you're
was really
one of my
engaged in
first
it.
meetings in sort of the FemPro space was probably me and 29 women at the big multinational client, and you go in and you think, well, I'm going to disarm this situation with a joke, and you learn very quickly that a joke is not right, And when you witness so many people who get up in the morning and work through the day, and they're literally in service of the young women that are going to use this product at the end of the day, it's very heart opening, and you quickly become, like, I was a believer, and I just every day my job was to put on a hat and be in service of someone who was going to use this product down the road. So whether it's to be gentle and sensitive about the product usage for someone who's just entering the marketplace, or whether it's helping folks who are using this product just go through life as if nothing's changed in their day, you learn very quickly to be in service of the end user. For my current clients, we call it, be in service, better patient outcomes, because I'm sort of a pharma brand now. But back then, it was just you were in service of this woman. And so it was easy to translate the passion for that into this sort of beauty scale sort of role, and be in service of whatever women or cohort of women could use this group of products at any given time, whether it was for their spotlight moments, as we used to call them, or whether it was just for their day-to-day sort of confidence builders.
So spotlight moments are like the big night out or something.
Yeah, the big night out,
big
or
presentation,
prom day, or
Got it.
Yeah, whatever. So yes,
I may use that.
I did my very best to, and I hope anyone listening who was involved in this felt the same way. I did my very best to always be in service of, right? And when then you layer on the idea of we're now in the worthy cause, you're in deeper service to folks, right? Now it's a serious thing, right? Because you've got people suffering from breast cancer, you've got breast cancer survivors whose lives have changed immensely. And I'm a part of this circle of women now working on a women's issue.
Because you're the lead, and you're also the lead creative.
I'm the lead creative. But
so you're part of kind of the leadership team
Right.
that is trying to solve for this issue.
And I'll tell you, we had a really hard time solving it. So I'm glad you used the word solve. I would guess that we went back to the client 2 to 4 times with thematics under which we would then sell these products that didn't really hit. They were non-successful, and they were things that ranged for moms everywhere, or for generations of women. They were ringing hollow. They felt like marketing, and I think the client was starting to get a little frustrated with, okay, I'm paying this agency to get it right. I know it's not easy, but let's get this done. And I think we were a little crispy. We're all feeling, how do we solve this for them? And a very junior person who's new to the team, and in what I would consider a very bold and brave move, brought in a headline. And the headline was, "Let's do it for the girls," right? And all the double entendre that you could take from that line was intended by the line. So girls as meaning, one, how groups of women sometimes refer to themselves. Hey, it's just us girls. It's girls' night out. So that meaning. But also, breasts, I guess. Hey, check out the girls, right? So hopefully I'm not going to get, #MeToo'd for this, for saying that out loud. But that was the double entendre meant with this. You're going to do it for womankind, but you're going to also do it for breast health and breast cancer awareness.
And to that point, the women kind of agree that was an appropriate way to refer.
I didn't write it. I just said, yes, I'll won't be the one that says it out loud to the client. The group of other 15 or so were all like pretty much down with it.
Yeah.
Yes. And there was some fear involved because it's a little risky for a client as conservative as this. Should we do this?
Yeah. So can I ask you a question? So you said a young, was it copywriter?
Copywriter.
Young female copywriter stepped forward
1 or 2 years out of school
with this
tops.
idea.
Yes.
So what did you create for that environment, for her to feel confident enough to be able to put that forward?
Thanks for putting it that way. I don't want to take credit for creating anything, but I do think that at the agency where I work, we're very welcoming to new ideas and very welcoming to an idea can come from anywhere. I think in the creative field, it can get a little precious where you're like, pat someone on the head, say, leave that to me, I'm the creative. But we try not to do that in my group anyway, and I think in most of the groups around the building. And so it's, hey, everyone, please go home tonight and come back with ideas. We'll look at all of them. And so part of it was required that she came back with an idea. But part of it was also everyone's going to have a voice here in the room. There weren't the layers where she would present to her boss and then there would be a filtering, and then that she would present to her boss and there would be a filtering, and then that she would present to me. It was just everyone would just show up. We got to solve this.
So it sounds like it's akin to what would happen in a writer's room for a sitcom, or where everyone, no matter what level, is in there and they're just like pitching ideas into the center of the room.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's what was happening kind of on this morning or afternoon when these ideas were being put in.
Yes. And you do have to, as a leader, try to brush away anyone's fears. You have to tell them this is a safe place, bring that. But also you want folks at a certain level, and this young woman wasn't at that level yet, so she didn't have to edit. But I don't want anyone that's fairly senior to bring me crap ideas. Like, they should know better. But, in this particular setting, it was let's bring everything. So here she comes, and she's like, let's do it for the girls, right?
And did you guys know? Like, is that
we
like,
knew? Like, it was one of those
soon
things.
as that is like, did the whole room just, almost stop in silence and be like, that?
I feel like it was 4 out of 5. I feel like there was one person in the room who had her conservative hat on, or whatever her role was. And I think she maybe was like, I'm not sure. Does that really do it? But the rest of us were like, you know what? Let's present this.
So, my experience is then when you have that, almost that aha moment where you hear something, you're like, oh my God, that's it. Like, that's what we need to go with. That's when the tables turn and everyone kind of has that to then rally around.
Yeah, and we did rally around it, and we all believed in it, but there was still that nagging fear that a conservative client may not like the double entendre, may think it's a little disrespectful, and I'm not even sure we shared it up at this time. Like, I think we just didn't have any time to even vet it with our bosses. I think we just went in to the presentation and shared it with the client. Now, a bit about the client. Super smart, awesome woman. I want you to keep in mind for the rest of the story that this is a woman that is devoutly Christian, okay? So, because something's going to come up later that flies in the face of that. But we get on the phone with her,
and is she the final? Like, is she the lead? Not the final decision, but she like the lead person who's either going to get behind this and championing it.
Yes, it's
like
that.
Through the rest of the organization.
So there, of course, everyone has a boss all the time, right? So she has someone she's got to sell this to, but she's been empowered to run this. It has been a couple of iterations, so she's wanting results, and I feel like she imagine probably just beneath a marketing director at the time. So brand manager, senior brand manager. No one else is going to come with her to the shoot. So she's that level of seniority. So for anyone listening that's not in the ad business, this is basically a manager, right? This is someone who has the power to hire and fire, to say yes or no. She's got budget. She can sign off on checks. So a fair amount of seniority, but still would have to vet this up eventually, but not on the day that we sold it. So we sold it, and it was a conference call. So those are awkward, where it's a bunch of folks looking at a phone, which is usually an odd-shaped phone. We call them star phones at the office. They have like 3 legs that go out, so there's little microphones around and then a speaker in the center. And you're speaking to someone who's probably in a cube setting. Maybe they're on a headset. And they're looking at a deck. And a deck is like a PowerPoint or keynote presentation, and you're clicking through. And I remember sort of palpably, I don't remember the exact words that we used, but I remember this phrase that we really liked so much, like, let's do it for the girls, in a deck with a couple other straw dogs that I knew probably weren't going to win, that didn't have the same stopping power. Part of me sort of hoped they didn't win. But because, anything you bring forth to a client, you have to be willing to sell, and you have to be willing to stand behind. You can't say, I brought it because it was crap. I knew you wouldn't buy it. You have to bring quality work. But my heart was in the one. I think all of our heart, the collective heart of the room was in selling the one. So we went through the presentation, and I'll tell you, it went off without a hitch. It was amazing. Like, the immediate reaction was like, oh yeah, that's it. I love it. It's so charming. It's not too serious. It's very arresting. What's your idea that we thought? And the thought was that we would have a multi-generational and multi-ethnic group of women, and they would be wrapped, sort of being taken care of by the cancer awareness ribbon, right? The pink ribbon that goes around them. So they were sort of as a shawl or a big pashmina was around them, and it indicated sort of the ribbon shape. And then the line, let's do it for the girls. And that was bought on that day, to much elation and relief of my group. So I think, as is the responsibility of many managers, after a situation like that, you want to have a slight debrief where you pull everyone together and you say, great job. I think everyone was leaving for the day. So in my infinite wisdom, I thought I would send a group email.
And there's also like a collective sigh of relief, right? So it's, okay, like we're not going to get fired, or we're not going to get yelled at, or there's not going to be another team who's going to be brought on to try and solve this. Like we did it, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna make this.
Yeah. And we all felt that. There was high fives and things like that. And then, your buddy, the dummy over here, decided to write an email to everyone in the group and congratulate them for the work. And maybe I had thought that this was a bigger mountain to climb than it really was, but it really, really felt like an accomplishment to sell a line with a little bit of a hint of playfulness and double entendre to a fairly conservative company. So I wrote back a expletive-laden rah-rah email to my team. Yay, blank yes, you guys are so blank and great at your jobs.
So is this like effing?
Yeah, some Fs.
Like some,
fair amount of Fs.
Yeah.
But good Fs at this point. Like, I'm so effing proud of this team. We effing nailed it. In what effing world did we ever think we'd sell this concept? It's effing awesome, you guys. Like that, right? F. Probably 5 Fs, maybe 7. What I didn't realize is the client was copied on this. I must have done it. I must have grabbed a distribution list from a prior email and hit reply and taken off some key names, but just not hers. Like, I don't know what I did.
So there was
like, it was exuberation. I was excited, and I wanted to congratulate everyone. They should felt really, really good about themselves. Those F-bombs were appropriate if the client wasn't on the email. They were right for this team because we had worked so hard. So it was like the biggest pat on the back I could give them.
And, in the advertising world, they're, using swearing is pretty common, right?
Common.
I mean, when I came into the world of advertising after the world of being in a corporate accounting and finance role, I was a bit taken aback by how liberally people would,
within our walls,
within the walls.
Like, I don't do it at a client unless I know them very well.
So within the walls, it's really, really common.
Very common.
It's almost, if you don't hear it, it's like what's missing. At least that's my experience.
Just as a side note, today I said something in a meeting earlier, and I said pardon my language, and they laughed at me. Right? And it wasn't even that bad of a word. I just felt like I should throw it out there. I'm the boss. I should be polite. And like, they laughed at me. So I send the email, And seconds later, it's that crushing realization, oh shit, the client is on this.
So now, what did you go back and look at the list then? Like, what even made you think of?
I don't know. I think I was just rereading it out of happiness. Like, I was proud of it.
And then you saw.
And I liked it, and I saw her name in the CC line. And I was like, oh, what do I do? So I immediately went to my account partner, who's responsible for the relationship. And we were like, oh, shit. Okay, so we should tell our bosses. So then we elevated to our bosses.
Which you do in the event that
it comes back.
The client, someone senior, it really becomes a problem with the client. It gets kind of laddered up on their end. So you want air coverage.
Yeah, a little air coverage.
So that people know, just in case.
And it wouldn't have been a problem with certain clients. But because of, we all know this woman's very, very faith-based existence and how devoted she is to her Christianity, we just felt, okay, maybe we crossed a line. So my boss says, you didn't say anything mean, nothing derisive about anyone, nothing derisive about the company. It was a very positive email, just laced with trucker language, right? So why don't you just craft a quick note, copy me on it, and just say, hey, I'm sorry about the language. We were really excited. We can't wait to make this work, which I did. And herein lies the problem. I never got a response from the client about my note.
So you sent it to the client, copied your boss,
and then crickets,
nothing.
Right?
Crickets.
Tumbleweed, nothing, just silence. And then a few days later, we start planning the photo shoot, the attendees of the photo shoot, the days, the photographer, etc. But this never comes up again.
So you're in conversation with said client.
And the funny thing is, I'm perceiving said client as being a little bit colder towards me. A little more one-word answers, a little bit more like she'd prefer to speak to someone else on the phone. I'm not hearing my name used. No one's saying, oh, Shawn, let's do this or that. It's just sort of like, she's putting up with me at this point. And so looming is a trip to New York and 1 or 2 14-hour days of photo shoot that I know I'm going to have to spend, at the craft table, craft services, eating food, meeting, looking at selects. There's
going to be things are going to come up.
It's going to be close.
And it may even begin to impact if there's certain creative things that you want to do. Right. That maybe, you had, that are kind of some new ads or added value things, or you want to change things, anything that you maybe want to suggest could be in jeopardy from your perspective, right? Because now the relationship feels like it's a little...
I don't know, but it might be tenuous. Right? It could be, It could be one of those things where there's less faith in my ability to lead the team just because I sent this one wildcard email. Now,
and never heard back. Never heard back.
So what I didn't know that I found out soon enough was that it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought. But so everyone listening, put yourselves in the mindset you're building up. I'm building up in my head to this, where I'm picking a photographer and getting these one-word answers as I present the photographer. I'm presenting layouts, which are hand-drawn, black and white sort of sketches, and getting one-word answers. Yeah, that's fine. That'll do. I'm okay with that. Like nothing exuberant back. And then finally, the moment arrives, and I and my team have flown to New York with a producer and one of the talented art directors from the team, and myself as the supervising creative, and maybe an account person I think was there. And the first day arrives, and everyone sort of shows up to the shoot, and I am on pins and needles, walking on eggshells, whatever the right
probably a combination of all
phrase,
those.
All those things. I literally, my stomach was in knots. And we, it's fairly customary in advertising. You see a client that you're pretty close with, you give them a hug. And so I went in for the hug, and the hug happened. And that was her moment to tell me, Shawn, I know how messed up you've been inside about this. I know that I've been not giving you the feedback that you wanted, and I just wanted to tell you, it's never been a big deal. I just thought it'd be really fun to lead you on for a couple weeks. And I was like, sweating through my, shirt a little bit. My palms for sure were sweaty. And I was like, oh my God. it was like one of those things where you find out something that you've been so tense about. And outwardly, I think I've come across as a very laid back and chill person, but inside, I really want things to go incredibly well. I think a lot of creatives have to have that brand where, we're cool and nothing phases us, but inside we really want perfection. And it was like this relief, like, okay, I can handle this now. And then, awkward moments as we went back and forth, and I realized she didn't want to talk about it at all. Like, she didn't want to belabor it. She just wanted me to know it was no big deal. She's glad we were excited. Be more careful next time. Let's move on.
And so in how long have you been working with her prior to this?
This was one of her first projects with me as the creative lead. We were aware of each other because she was sort of junior on some other projects, but this was like her first elevation.
So you knew her, but you didn't know her really well. So
I knew enough to know better that I should have sworn. Like
okay,
that.
yes.
I didn't know her
it
that
wasn't.
well.
You didn't know. Is this part of her? Like, does she have this sense of humor? Like, you don't know enough to be like, oh, okay, she's just pulling my leg. So you don't know that.
And then we got there and we found out.
So then you found out.
Yeah.
But there's also an interesting. So I'm listening to this story and there's a couple things that come to my mind. First of all, there's a bit of a role reversal for you because you're the only guy working in this large team of women.
Yep.
The other thing is interesting. There also feels like there was a little bit of a power play from her. A little bit. Like maybe. A little bit of, you know what, I'm going to make him sweat a little bit. Now, I don't know if that, to what extent was her intention, but as I'm listening to this, I'm wondering, is that there's feels like there's just a little bit of that, because I think guys would do that. I think there are some men in that environment that would be like, you know what, I'm gonna let him dangle.
Yeah.
Right.
I do remember feeling a little bit like, could you have let me know this wasn't a big deal? Like back in the, but.
Like maybe after like day 3 or something.
Yeah. But this was weeks. But then it was cool. The shoot came out great. The work was delightful. I think it was very well received. I think it was about raising some money, and I think they raised a lot of money and awareness. But in the end, lesson learned, right?
Yeah. So what is interesting, and when I'm listening to this story, so we talked about swearing kind of like in the workplace, but then there's like swearing in an email, or using, kind of questionable language in an email. And even though yours was very good natured, that is some place where I would say, I don't think I've ever used swearing in an email.
I might not again, right? Like, cause you got to remember, like if you put it in an email, it's permanent. It's forwardable. It's like, I don't even think truly, if you mark them private or whatever, I don't even think that really stops anybody from doing anything. They can copy and paste it, right? I think people need to think, and that's what I'm telling you at home. Like it is, if it's on the internet, it's there for good, right? And email is technically on the internet. Like it is shared via it. It is captured somewhere. Someone of my bosses, if they decided to, could go and look at any email that comes in and out of the building with my name on it because it's their property, right? I'm just using it. I'm using their computer, the whole thing. So swearing, I think, has to be very, very choiceful. But I will try to just use words of a higher order, I think, than swears in my future communiques, if you will. Just because it's probably a better idea.
On that note, Shawn Farrell, thank you very much for being Not Suitable for Work.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone has sent an email they later regretted, either due to being overly exuberant, like Shawn, or rushing to cross items off the to-do list, or sometimes, like me, you just have a brain fart. Mistakes happen. Most times you can recover without any lasting damage to the relationship. And if you don't get a response after apologizing for an email faux pas, don't worry, they're just milking the situation and want to see you sweat. If you want more Not Suitable for Work or have a work story to share, be sure to follow us on Facebook at Not Suitable for Work. You can find our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or wherever you find your podcast. If you have a question you want answered on a future episode, call us at 872-256-0827 and leave us a message. I'm Peter C. Diamond. You can follow me on Twitter at Peter C. Diamond. Not Suitable for Work is produced by Matt Cunningham at Truthful Enthusiasm. Get your story online with truthfulenthusiasm.com. Until next time.